Welcome back to another SCBWI featured illustrator interview. My name is Tamika Grooms, and I'm the Design and Illustration Manager for SCBWI. Every month, we select an Illustrator member to spotlight on the SCBWI website and social media pages to highlight the work that they're doing in the children's illustration market. This month's featured illustrator is David Hohn. David, how are you today?
I'm doing just fine.
Good, good. Thank you for taking some time to chat with me today. I am actually looking really forward to learning more about your work and your process and your history and all the things that you do. So, so welcome.
That is great. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So, just so you know, one of the reasons that we selected your artwork was because of, you have really dynamic characters, but you also have dynamic environments, and there's a lot of perspective that you tend to pull into your artwork. And I really want to learn more about that, as well as your journey and to, how you've gotten to the point where you are now. I know that you're an educator as well. So I would love to hear about, just start with your journey. Let's see how did you come to being where you are now?
Oh, sure. Let's see. So being an illustrator, kind of figured that out. Well, at around the age of 12, I realized that there was a job that you could have called being an illustrator. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I'd always drawn since, the very young ages. Um, Went to school at the Maryland Institute College of Art for illustration. The one downside to when I went is that they didn't have much of a picture book program at the time. They do now. It's kind of amazing, actually. But I went there during that time, graduated, and really just kind of declared myself a picture book illustrator. Had a lot of the day jobs. I had a number of staff illustrator positions at various companies, but found myself out here on the east or on the west coast, up here in Portland, Oregon. And yeah, I had my last staff position was here. It was right around that time. It was what was I, 26, 27, when I left that to pursue freelance illustration full time. I had gotten, I guess my promotions had gone well enough that I had gotten my first two. Oh boy, I'm pretty sure they were early readers. They were the kind of books that they weren't trade books. They were definitely early readers. Oh no, scratch that. I'd gotten my first trade book with a very small little publisher here in Portland called Beyond Words, which has since been acquired by Simon and Schuster. Weirdly, the book is still in print. It came out in like 2001, 2002. Yay, long-tailed book sales. And yeah, and that was kind of the beginning of freelancing full time.
Okay.
The education part of it happened a number of years later, almost by accident, but mostly because I have learned about things like copyright and contracts. And my lovely wife was really tired of hearing me talk about it at home. And so she told me that I should go talk to students about it who would be way more interested. And that was kind of the beginning of the teaching at the university level.
Gotcha. So I want to go back to your earlier time.
Sure.
Where I get to the more current time. Did you have favorite stories or magazines, or anything that you were really into as a child?
Oh, as a kid? Yeah, sure. Deeply influenced by illustrator John R. Neal, who is he's best known for the illustrations to the Wizard of Oz books after Denslow. Denslow's okay. I mean, that might be a hot take, but yeah, John O'Neill was definitely the illustrator that I copied as a kid, and then got influenced. I guess like kind of the golden age of illustrators. Arthur Rackham was the other guy that was just a huge influence on all of my early work, especially in college.
And do you
Go
see
ahead.
that their work you can see the reflection of their work in yours?
Nope.
Okay.
No, but no. What I was about to say is I was so influenced by Rackham in college that I had a visiting illustrator. He came in to chat with like maybe our senior class, and I was still so influenced by him that he kind of pulled me aside and nicely. He did it in a very nice way. Kind of pulled me aside. He was like, "Hey man, there's already an Arthur Rackham out there. Why don't you go be your own thing?" Which is completely fair and very typical as somebody who works with college students. Being heavily influenced by your favorite illustrators is not uncommon at all. Yeah, so over the years, I mean, I think everybody goes through those stages. It was John Arneal, Arthur Rackham, Maxfield Parrish. Well, I had like my Maxfield Parrish stage. I had Charles Santor, a Philadelphia-based illustrator. Like I think there's a very early book that I did that I was clearly this is one of those early reader books, like one of the first or second books I did. There was a pretty bad ripoff of Charles Santor, like not nearly as good. So all these people are kind of influences. And then I would say now, I mean, if you look at the stuff that I'm doing now, ooh, they're all in there, they're all ingredients to the style. But yeah, I don't think you could pinpoint any of that stuff nowadays.
Yeah, yeah. When I asked the question, I felt like I was kind of leading you a little bit, but I'm glad that you kind of touched on some things. Like as illustrators, especially as we're developing early on, we're really trying to figure out who we are, what do we want to say, how do we want to say it, what materials we want to use, what direction we want to go with those materials, and what is it going to look like when we actually put pen to paper or whatever else we're using. What
Right.
does it look
Stylus to
like?
tablet.
Yeah, what does it look like for us to do it, right? But
Yep.
there's definitely a process and a growth that you have to grow through to find your style, your voice, who you are as
Yeah.
an artist. So yeah, you touched on that for sure. So thank you for that. Yeah. So let's get into that. Tell us a little bit about the materials that you use and a little bit about your process if you want to share that.
Sure. Oh, sure. You kidding? You get to talk about my stuff. Let's see. I I think I always wanted to, well, certainly in college, I wanted to be an oil painter, but the deadlines were always too short. And so I would do watercolor instead because, you could kind of hit I'm going to school like Photoshop is a thing, but it's not a very good thing. And no one was using it particularly well.
Right.
And so, and all of my instructors, of course, are not digital artists at all. So everybody that I'm being influenced by and being instructed by aren't doing the digital stuff. So I'm doing, taking the painting classes. Oil paint takes too long to dry. Watercolor is nice and fast. I had this lovely internship with an illustrator named John Kachik over in Baltimore. And he introduced me to this idea of doing watercolor as the underpainting, sealing it, and then doing oil glazes on top. And this gave me like all the lovely flexibility that I wanted, especially as a college student, as somebody who was working profession in my early years working professionally. I could have the speed and flexibility of a medium that dried really fast, but then I could get that, the kind of the depth and the mark making that I really appreciated about oils. And honestly, that has kind of it's been this slow progression over time. I nowadays I work almost exclusively digitally, but the work that I make digitally looks almost exactly like the work that I made physically because I spent so many years working with the physical media that as I transitioned over to, and it's almost exclusively Photoshop now. I'm bringing in marks, I'm bringing in textures, I'm bringing in honestly just the processes that I did. My digital paintings or my digital files, they're built exactly the same way that my physical media was built, which often surprises, I think it surprises some art directors who will be like, hey, can you just pull out this piece so we can use it as a little piece on the back cover, or we need a little something for a promo piece. So can you just, grab that piece out? I'm like, no, actually I can't because it's built it's not they're not individual pieces. And I know that there are other especially other illustrators who work digitally where everything is on like every figure's on its own layer. In my case, the colored pencil is on its own layer, the watercolor is on its own layer, the sketch is on its own layer, and so everything just the same way that I would if I was doing a physical painting.
As a person who started traditionally and has moved into digital almost exclusively, I really appreciate that you said it that way because that's how I work too. Like I know how to use Photoshop. I'm pretty good at it, but
Mhm.
I think like a person who creates with traditional materials. So the digital is just now a tool that I use to expand it in a different, well, a little bit faster in a different direction, I guess.
Isn't it nice? Now I'm curious, did you have I had a little bit of growing pains as I made that transition because I was there for at least I thought I was in love with the thing. Like I loved making a thing and having it be there. And like it was the painting and it was the manifestation of hours of work and layering on of material. And I remember making as I made the transition, I was like, I mean, one, it made it faster, which is a great thing when you're looking to make a living at this. But you do miss out on a box full of paintings that is the book. Did you find yourself with that?
I still feel like I miss that sometimes. Like I wanna pull the thing out, put it in a
Mhm.
frame, put it on a wall, go show it to somebody in a gallery, and I can
Right.
still do those things, but now there's a printer aspect and sending files, and it doesn't necessarily have the same feel. It doesn't have my DNA in it. You know what I'm saying? So
I do know what you mean. I have this notion now. One of the things that I kind of placate myself with is I remember watching a video of an illustrator. I cannot remember the name of it. It was, the YouTube rabbit hole had sent me down it, but it was an illustrator from like the 1950s, the 1960s. And this illustrator was talking, this picture book illustrator was talking about the fact that he never sees the finished art until the book is printed because they were doing all the separations themselves. It was like a 3 or 4 color book. So the line work would be in black, and then there'd be like a yellow spot color that would be on there. And that, of course, would be in black as a separate piece of art. And then there'd be the red would be on there, and that would be in black as a separate piece of art. And all these pieces would then get scanned in, turned into the specific color separations. And only at the very end did the artwork come together as the book. And one of the things that, at least in my own mind, is, I'm a picture book illustrator. Like I can have all those individual pieces, and they're lovely, and yay. But the book is the thing, holding this. It's not this piece is the most important thing. It's the whole experience. And so, at least to my mind, that's well, actually, not even to my mind. I don't think I'm convincing myself of anything. I think that's kind of I've noticed. Let's just say I had that transition where it felt a little quirky, and I felt like, ooh, am I missing out on something? But I've now been working this way for easily 10, 15 years, 10 years, and and I love it, and I'm having a great time with it. I do always think, one of these days I'm going to take that painting or that digital painting and recreate it as a physical piece. Um, I never seem to have the time for that though. There's way too much stuff going on.
right.
So, but anyway,
Yeah, the challenges of being an illustrator, and it is very different from being a fine artist,
yeah.
and a person who exclusively does fine art, not a mix of the two. But
Mhm.
it is a very different thought process and what the end goal actually is, So we do have to think about being visual storytellers. And this, I'm looking at the word on my screen because when I thought about your work, you are very much a visual storyteller because I can look at one of your pieces, just one piece, and I can see that there's so much story in that one image that it's not just I got this cute character that the character's doing a thing, but there's layers that talk about the environment, and there's a lot of your pieces you go even further back deep into the painting where it kind of draws you in and gives you even more story. So I'm looking at the word visual storyteller on my screen because that's how I describe you. Um,
I will take it. That's
Okay.
great. Like I can't get any higher praise than that, to be honest. That's fantastic.
So let's talk about your perspectives. Was there anything that kind of led you to kind of take that approach? Because not all artists do.
Right, right. Anything in particular that took me there? Well, I I was taught perspective by my mother's quite a good artist. And so I was introduced to the concept of perspective fairly early on. I remember going to my freshman year classes where they taught kind of the basic drawing stuff. And I remember, being, 18 and I don't know, whatever, classic 18-year-old and being like, really? You guys all don't know perspective yet? That kind of thing. And so maybe at that, if I'm going to pinpoint to something, it was at that point where I was like, oh, this is a skill that not everybody has, and I can play around with it. I think over the years, it has just kind of been because I think of image making very cinematically. It's always a little bit of a movie in my mind. And so moving the camera around to see if where the placement can be to best communicate the story. I guess it's a little bit, I know cinematographers think that exact same way. Like, all right, here's what the point of this moment in the movie or the show is. How do we frame it to best communicate the essence, the core emotion of the scene? In my case, I think of it as the word as a keyword. What's the keyword that I'm looking to communicate at this spread or in this image? And so anyway, the ability to kind of position the camera and compose the shot in a way that communicates that keyword as effectively as possible. That's where I tend to lean on perspective to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And perspective isn't easy to do either. Like I've done stuff in the past and the perspective was off. And when it's off, it's horrible. When it's good, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, and that's the fun bit to me and that's been kind of the pleasure in the recent years is all right, so a handle on linear perspective, 1 2 3 point perspective is great. Now, is it more effective to throw it away? So like in this part of the scene, I'll keep the perspective, but over here, I'll throw it away. And I've watched, I certainly have mimicked, admired, and tried to study other illustrators who will play with it in that way, which is, again, it just turns perspective, much like physical media, digital media, in this case, perspective, using it or not using it. It's all a tool to communicate something that hopefully really clicks with the reader.
Okay. So since we've talked so much about your work and your perspective, let's just go ahead and show them your website so they can see what we're talking about. Okay. Can you see my screen with just your website on it?
It looks great. Yep.
Okay. All righty. So let's talk about these illustrations, and I'm just going to thumb through a few of them on your website.
Okay.
So this first one, let's talk just really briefly about this one. Is this from a book or?
No, this is my agent does every 2 months. He does a promotional, promotional promotion blast email, whatever it is. But anyway, promo images, and he'll give a nice little theme that you can kind of play around with. I think, I couldn't remember what this particular prompt was, but it's a nice little prompt, which is great because, of course, he just wants amazing images, that speak to the kind of work that you'd like to, that his clients would like to get. And so, yeah, this one is a promo image. I just love the idea of finding something unexpected in kind of an unexpected place. And so I initially I pitched this one, sketched this guy up as just, this carnival that kind of appeared in almost all my images are set here in the Pacific Northwest. I love it in this area. Didn't grow up here, but been here for 20 years now, and it is awesome. And so this idea of finding these, this carnival sort of unexpectedly popping up. And I always brainstorm with my wife, who also she and I met at that illustration program at MICA. So she's kind of my ideal audience. If she says she likes something, I'm like, sweet, that's great. Okay, moving forward. And so I pitched this to her and she was like, okay, carnival in the forest, that's nice. Could you make it
Yeah,
a little more interesting? And I was like how? And we were just throwing stuff around and something about like maybe it's on an island in a lake. And then I think one of us said maybe there's no island and they move around by boats. And I was like, yes, please, fantastic, that's great. Just that kind of yes anding an idea to make it a little to increase the sense of story and in this case the kind of mystery that's attached to it.
well, what's interesting about this one too is like my eye is like doing a loop through it, like I'm threading through in and out of going through the doorway and coming back out. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does, and that is fantastic.
Okay.
Because what you're describing is something akin to a ride.
Uh,
And that is the vibe that we're going for here. I mean, that's what makes the amusement parks so fun and so entrancing and that kind of thing.
and so you mentioned before we showed your screen a keyword of what you want people to feel, like the emotion. So I think I caught the emotion by catching the ride and the
There you
adventure,
go.
the movement. Okay, cool. All right.
That's
Success.
exactly it. Exactly.
This was another one with the perspective that it reminded me of what's the artist? Oh my gosh, it's leaving me right now. But with the stairways that go,
Escher.
thank you. Thank
There we
you.
go. No,
Yeah.
no, I was struggling for that one too. I'm like, I can picture the image kind of thing. And then, yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. 100% stealing from Escher here.
Yeah. But it's so tricky though because of the perspective um that you're playing with here, that it's not easy, and you're adding light and color and texture and all the other things, so there's a lot going on this one image.
Oh, for sure. Now, this is speaking of like perspective on this one. I set this thing up. So I did this as they come out, I do a bunch of little thumbnail versions as I'm playing around with different, the different points of view and stuff like that. And so I came up with this, a drawing that looked pretty similar to this. And I was like, okay, great. Now I will go in and I will track my horizon line and everything going to the two, the left and right vanishing point and then the third vanishing point. And I'm doing this drawing and I'm like, oh, it's so stiff. It's like it didn't have the life and the kind of the energy of my rough sketch, my more finished, tighter,
Mhm,
technically accurate linear perspective drawing,
mhm,
where all the stairs and everything, like you could build it as a little model. And I was like, bugger. And this has happened to me before, where I'm like, oh, the quicker sketch that wasn't as academically correct or technically correct, actually had more life to it. So I took, the 6 hours that I'd spent tracking all my perspective lines, and I threw it away. I just grabbed my rough sketch and lightly cleaned it up. So none of these stairs quite track correctly, but kind of like you said, it captures the feeling better. And that's a
yeah.
really tricky thing. I think when you learn some of these technical tools, you're like, oh, I'm going to use it, only to realize, oh, wait, you don't use it exactly the way it's supposed to be used, or should, academically should be used, but captures the feeling that you're going for.
Yeah, yeah. And why it's important that you actually learn the rules so you can break the rules too.
You know it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. Isn't it
But you do
useful?
have to learn them though, you know?
I think it helps. I
Yeah, it
like
helps.
it. I like it.
So I'm just gonna thumb through a few of these. I really like
Sure.
this one as well. There's a lot of story in this. I remember counting sheep as a child, and it worked. And so clearly it worked for this little boy too.
Yeah, exactly. And this is another one of those where I definitely work well. One of the reasons I like being a picture book illustrator as compared to a gallery artist is I am a team player. Like I like the fact that when you're working on a picture book, it's the author's text, it's the editor's, choices as they've worked with the authors, it's the art director, it's you. Everybody's kind of bouncing ideas around with one goal, which is to make the best possible experience for a reader.
Mhm.
And this is another one of those where I'd mentioned that this is a promo for my agent, and I pitched, I came up with a bunch of sketches, and I bounced this off of my wife, and we were yes-anding it with each other, and because it was a kid in the bed initially with I think maybe a sheep at the window, and then it was like, well, what if they're inside too? Well, what like that? How can you take it even further? Like, how can you crank it up even further? And so it's really fun. I think
Yeah.
it's really fun to do that. It's actually more satisfying than me in my studio by myself.
Yeah. And you with this one, you didn't just crank it up to, one notch. You cranked it up like 10 notches.
There we go. I'll take it.
Because
Yeah, exactly.
there's sheep everywhere, and it's not just sheep everywhere, they're in the bed with them. You can feel how it feels to lay on the sheep, you know
Yeah,
and it's so
exactly.
soft with the texture and the color. Like you cranked it all the way up. So I thought this was fun. It was a lot.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
And this is one, that little stuffed animal that the boy is holding. I've been doing this now long enough that I'm able to make references to my own, like other artworks, and in this case, other books. So
Hmm.
there's a series that I worked on with Waterbrook, which is an imprint of Random House. And it was this God gave us, it was part of the God gave us series. So God gave us prayer, God gave us the Bible. Anyway, that's a little stuffed animal version of one of the main characters from that book series.
Gotcha.
So it's just all those are the little Easter eggs that are just kind of fun for the illustrator that no one ever needs to know, but really cool to start to be able to play with that as you're moving on in your career.
Yeah. So you have a lot of artwork on here. I want to encourage everybody to just go and check out David's website. Before I get off the website, this one I don't think was on the site, so I want to pull it up. This is the one that we have featured
Great.
this month. Is this a part of a book, or is it a one-off?
Well, there was a whole series. So I pitched a dummy
Mhm.
that involved a frog and a firefly. And so I made, the typical thing that you do. You write the story, you sketch up the dummy, and then you make two or three sample pieces from it. And I discovered in this process that I really liked painting fireflies. Like that was maybe one of the things as growing up on the West Coast and moving to the East Coast for college. I still remember the first, like it must have been August because school always starts in September. So I'm in Baltimore. I've moved in. I'm taking a lovely little stroll as I'm getting ready for my first day of freshman year, and I'm outside, and I had never seen fireflies before.
Hmm.
And if you've never seen fireflies before, they're pretty magical.
They
Like
are.
they're just pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I just remember that really stuck with me, and it's just an image in my head. It never made its way into my artwork before, but I'm doing this dummy. It involves this frog and this firefly, and I'm painting them, and I'm just thinking this is fantastic. And so again, another promo piece where you get to do whatever you want, and of course, ideally, you're painting the kind of projects you'd like to work on. And these kind of sort of slice of life magical kind of moments is where this guy's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this piece, and I think it's going to look wonderful on the website. So thank you for sharing that with that story about it.
My pleasure.
We call them June bugs in I live in Georgia.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, we call them June bugs in some parts of the South, but fireflies work too.
That's actually honestly, Junebug's is a better name.
It's cuter, right?
Yeah, it sure is. I like it.
So I have a couple more questions for you. Are there any books that we should be on the lookout for? And tell us a little bit about why you joined SCBWI.
Oh, so I'll start with the why I joined SCBWI. As I mentioned, did my undergraduate degree. But there wasn't a strong picture book program at the time. So I kind of left being like, okay, how do I do this? I was thinking, like, where did I first come across SCBWI? Because I'm joining way back in the early aughts. So I'm pretty sure I had I'm pretty sure I'd gone to Barnes and Noble, and there was a children's author and illustrators marketplace guide. Like it's this book that comes out. It was coming out like every year, and it was a list of publishers and agents that you could, potentially, send work to. And I'm sure I have every reason to think that it was in there that I read about this organization called Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And honestly, I joined because, the name kind of sells it. Like if you want to be an author or an illustrator in children's books, like it just felt like the place to go. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the reason I needed a place after college to kind of build my network, find my tribe. And that has absolutely been the case. Yeah, I shared a studio with another children's book illustrator here in Portland for 10 years, and we met because of SCBWI, easily, one of my best friends. So yeah, so that is why I joined it. I stay in it because it's awesome. And as an instructor now teaching up and coming picture book illustrators, it is my, hey, when you leave, this is the place to go. Like this is where you'll continue to network, where you'll learn more stuff, network not only, professionally, but also socially, in terms of the people that'll keep you going when things get tough. And then new books. I just got a lovely email from my art director from Sleeping Bear Press. I have a book coming out. The cover's on this other screen here. The Dog Who Saved the Bees, coming from Sleeping Bear Press in August. They just announced it. It'll start popping up on my social media. I'll do the promotion thing. It's written by Stephanie Garibald, Gibault. I have not met Stephanie yet, so I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing her name incorrectly. But yeah, that one's coming out in August.
Exciting, exciting.
Yeah, it's
And
gonna be good.
yeah, and tell us, how can people learn more about your work?
Oh, honestly, website, social media is probably the best place to find out anything new that's going on.
Okay.
I have lovely ideas for all these cool things that like I'm kind of geeking out right now. I'm reading this I'm reading this book that this is an interlibrary loan. Sorry, it's on here. Caldecott and Company, which is a series of essays that Maurice Sendak
Ah,
wrote. And so I'm kind of geeking out about that. And I'm like, I'm reading his essays, but there's no pictures. And so I found myself this morning, like going through this essay about Mother Goose and then wanting to grab all samples of all the illustrators that he referenced as the best and the worst Mother Goose illustrators. And so I have this notion like, ooh, wouldn't that be just a fun, I don't know, are blog posts still a thing? I have no idea. But like, that's the kind of stuff that I find myself sort of geeking out, nerding out about a little bit.
yeah.
So keep an eye on it. If something expands, I'll post it to, Blue Sky or Instagram. Those are the two places that I tend to hang out the most and be like, did you see this? It's so cool. That kind of stuff.
Okay, that sounds great. That sounds
There we
all
go.
right. Well, David, it has been a pleasure to talk with you today. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I feel inspired to go ahead and do some more creating, and I hope our audience does too. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Hey, thank you guys so much.